Hello, welcome to the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch, your window into the world of diplomacy and international affairs. His Excellency Walid Abu Ali, Palestinian's ambassador to Malaysia, joins me in the studio. Fresh from co-chairing CPAD 4 in Kuala Lumpur, Ambassador Walid is calling for deeper ASEAN engagement on the Palestinian issue, not just in principle, but in policy, and we'll find out what that means. Your Excellency, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you back here again. It's been a good year since we last spoke. Thank you so much for doing this now. There's a lot to talk about, and I know we've put together a set of questions, but we might run away from that set of questions. Let's just start here with ASEAN. You were present for the ASEAN Senior Official Meeting and CPAD engagements this month. Now, what did those meetings mean for Palestine?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, and a good afternoon to you and to all viewers of in Malaysia and outside Malaysia. First of all, let me, from the bottom of my heart, thank Malaysia, the government and the people for their ongoing support to the Palestinian cause, to Palestine. And Malaysia continued to support Palestine locally, regionally, and internationally. And no one can question the ongoing support of Malaysia to Palestine. Of course, lately, Malaysia, since they took over the presidency of ASEAN, the last meeting or the last three summits took place in Kuala Lumpur, the ASEAN Summit, the ASEAN and China Summit, and the ASEAN and GCC Countries Summit. Palestine was there, and Palestine was kept on the political actions of Malaysia at all times. Of course, last week, the ministerial, ASEAN ministerial meeting Kuala Lumpur. On the side of that, CPAD was hosted by Malaysia as well here, where all CPAD members participated in the CPAD fourth ministerial conference took place in Kuala Lumpur. And that was focused on Palestine and the Palestinian cause.
Now, you've called for Palestine to be placed permanently on ASEAN's diplomatic agenda. The question is, why now? And what would that look like in practice?
Why now? It is just because of the ongoing Israeli genocide kept going for the last 21 months, where the Israeli massacre continued against our Palestinian people, where all Palestinians in Gaza and Jerusalem and the West Bank and even in diaspora continued to suffer as a result of the Israeli occupation. Why now? Earlier, I always repeatedly said that we never questioned the support of Malaysia, but since Malaysia took the presidency of ASEAN, Malaysia can play a role to reactivate, to influence those countries who question the support to Palestine, or they are not sure of giving their support to Palestine. So Malaysia on the regional level can play a strong role in pushing countries with its influence through its international relation to help more and more get support to Palestine and the Palestinians.
Your Excellency, CPAD has often been about support beyond words, about rebuilding, technical assistance, and institutional help. Did this latest meeting offer anything concrete for Palestine?
I hope you read or you gone through the joint statement which was released as a result of the fourth ministerial meeting of CPAD here in Kuala Lumpur. Originally, CPAD, when it was created, it was a platform created in 2013 as an initiative by Japan, and Japan tried to focus a lot on the humanitarian, technical and development in Palestine. But more and more, with all what the Japanese has done, when ASEAN accepted to be members of the CPAD, there is a lot can be done on the political level as well as the development and the technical assistance provided to Palestine. Through the fourth ministerial summit or conference here in Kuala Lumpur, we as Palestinians represented by our Minister of Planning, Mr. Stefan Salama, who represented our country on this CPAD conference, we asked all members to, number one, prioritize, our needs as Palestinians. A top priority for us through the CPAD is to have an immediate, unconditional ceasefire. Unfortunately, international community failed to achieve a ceasefire to stop this genocide and massacre in Gaza for the last 460 plus days. So an immediate ceasefire is a must. If we talk about development, if we talk about implementing, rebuilding Gaza, that never start before achieving a ceasefire respected by the Israelis and not to be violated as they did since March of this year. Mm-hmm. So a priority number one is a ceasefire. Priority number two, to process, to develop a humanitarian corridor to provide those 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza with the very basic daily needs in terms of food, in terms of health, water, healthcare, and the very basic shelters, because almost 85% of the infrastructure of Gaza has totally or partially has been destroyed by the Israelis.
Right, you talk about an unconditional ceasefire. We had Antonio Guterres, the UN chief, also say the same thing. He reiterated his stance on a ceasefire, but it seems to be falling on deaf ears. You speak very strongly, even in Malaysia while you're here, and even with your engagements abroad, you speak very strongly about what's happening in Gaza now, and you say that Israel continues to violate ceasefire efforts. Now, having said that, with ASEAN and with all the foreign ministers here last week, how are you using platforms like ASEAN to communicate that urgency?
The message of the ASEAN members was clear. Mm-hmm. No one questioned the need for an immediate ceasefire. No one questioned the urgency of providing Gaza and the Palestinians in Gaza with the daily needs in terms of humanitarian aids. Although we try to emphasize that our cause is not just humanitarians. Our main challenge is the Israeli occupation. According to UN resolutions, according to the international communities who believed on the two-state solutions, the Israeli occupation is the main challenge. To have an independent Palestinian state on the 1967 borders with Al-Quds as the capital, according to UN resolutions 242 and 338, is the only solution which can be implemented in the Middle East, where Middle Eastern countries can enjoy peace and can enjoy stability in the Middle East. ASEAN can play a role through their influence, through their interests in the Middle East. They have, excellent contact, interests in terms of economy, in terms of being involved in so many joint interests with the Middle Eastern country. When the ASEAN group decided to have meetings with the GCC countries, just because they have interests, when the war broke through between Iran and Israel, the whole Middle East, all, flights to the Middle East were affected. So having a final comprehensive peace agreement in the Middle East, recognizing an independent Palestinian state to live side by side with Israel, is the solution. War is not the solution. What the Israeli government has been doing since 7th of October. 7th of October was a result of 7 decades of Israeli occupation. International community is in favor of implementing two-state solution, but unfortunately, none of the resolutions which were taken in favor of Palestine have been implemented. Why? International community has to play a role to convince, whoever can affect on Israel, to put the pressure on Israel to implement UN resolutions and to put an end to this struggle.
Your Excellency, I'd like to run away from these questions and talk about what we spoke about before we got into the studio. Now, you did mention something about understanding the veracity or the situation in Palestine. A lot of us understand it wrongly. From different lenses we understand it, and we are now starting to look at it from lenses of religiosity, from lenses of race and religion. What do Malaysians not understand about this?
Let me make it clear. For Malaysians and for the 2 billion Muslims around the world, our struggle has nothing to do with religion. Although Benjamin Netanyahu and his government are trying to promote the Jewish state, if the Jews has the right to have a state in Palestine, then Christians have the right to have a state in Palestine, and Muslims have the right to have a state in Palestine. And let me go back before 1947, before the creation of Israel. Jews were living in Palestine and they enjoyed their freedom, they enjoyed their human rights, similar to Muslims and Christians in Palestine. When Israel was created as an investment for Zionism, our struggle started. We are victims of the Israeli occupation in Palestine. Religion, a Christian, my hometown is Bethlehem. Bethlehem is the capital of Christianity. Christians and Muslims in Bethlehem are suffering of the Israeli occupation. So we as Palestinians, whether you are a Muslim or you are a Christian, you are suffering the same. When the Israelis striked Ahli Hospital in Gaza, the Ahli Hospital is one of the hospitals, the oldest hospitals in Palestine. Where Al Ahli Hospital belongs to Hamas, for example, it's nothing to do with, the religion. Israelis were targeting all hospitals in Gaza, regardless whether it belongs to Muslims or to Christians. The Christian community in Jerusalem are suffering the same as the Muslim community. When we have on the New Year celebrating Christmas, Christians are suffering in Gaza, in the West Bank, and in Jerusalem, the same as the Muslims. Mm-hmm. So my message to Malaysians and to all Muslims, our struggle, we are not against the Jews. We are against Israel and against Zionism because they are occupying our territory.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, I guess with all the work that you're doing with regards to diplomacy, it's to get that message out with regards to a ceasefire. And there's also a lot of misunderstanding around aid going into Gaza at this point. There's been many blockades. All entry points are being squeezed as we speak. Well, what do you know that we don't know about these about aid going into Gaza at this point, or Palestine?
Well, unfortunately, international community witness on daily basis that the Israelis are using starvation as a punishment for all Palestinians in Gaza. Since Israel controlled the air, controlled the land, controlled the sea, facilitating humanitarian aids to Gaza will never be facilitated without coordinating with the Israeli authorities. And since the Israeli authorities, the Israeli army, the Israeli occupation forces are using starvation as a punishment, so the international community is limited to what they can send to Gaza. All humanitarian aids from Malaysia, for example, which has been sent since October 7th and before even October 7th, which used to be processed through Rafah crossing point, since the Israeli control in Rafah, since the Israelis controlling Karm Abu Salim, controlling the sea, controlling even the air parachuting system which Jordan and Egypt tried to help Gaza. I mean, it all has to be coordinated with the Israelis, and the Israelis continue to use it as a punishment against Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, with what you're telling me also, I guess your message with regards to countries wanting to help now. There, many countries or smaller countries want to help, but they can't afford the help that is needed. They can voice the displeasure of the whole situation out, and they're trying to help. What assistance is needed other than an immediate ceasefire? What assistance do you think people in Gaza and the rest of Palestine need at this point for diplomats across the region listening to this?
To implement an immediate ceasefire is a top priority one.
Yeah.
To facilitate a humanitarian corridor which includes all kind of food, drinks, water, drinking water, healthcare facilities. If I tell you, I share with you that almost the whole health system in Gaza collapsed. The whole educational system in Gaza collapsed. Residential units, when I say 85% of the infrastructure of Gaza have been demolished or destroyed in Gaza. So when you talk about Gaza, you talk about everything needed in Gaza. And of course there are a lot of efforts, and the efforts are there to be contributing to Gaza. But those, whether the countries are small or big, they are looking to have safety and security for their contributions to reach Gaza. I mean, when Malaysia contributed through hundreds of trucks of humanitarian aids and stuck outside Gaza on the borders with Egypt, and some of it had gone expired, some of them no more useful to be used. So the international community is responsible in having pressure on Israel to facilitate an immediate humanitarian aids to the 2.3 million people in Gaza. In addition to that, in the West Bank, there are thousands and millions of Palestinians are suffering. When you talk about Jenin, when you talk about Tulkarm and the refugee camps in the West Bank, and the settlers' daily invasion to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, I mean, what the Israeli settlers, with the support of the Israeli army, the armed settlers, I mean, who were armed by Minister Ben Gvir, who's supposed to be the security minister for Israel, who armed all settlers in the West Bank, and they shoot, they kill, and they injure Palestinians on daily basis. If you look into the statistics on daily basis, what these settlers are doing in the West Bank, no difference than what they are doing in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. Finally, very quickly, we've got about a minute left, Your Excellency. We're living in uncertain times. There's the massacre in Gaza, there's Ukraine, there's tensions in the Indo-Pacific. How does Palestine plan to navigate this changing order, especially from within Asia?
We always look to Asia, to Africa, to Europe. While we're talking today, EU is meeting in Brussels to discuss boycotting and to discuss measures against Israel and against what the Israelis are doing. I think international community in general is united now to show their support and solidarity and to stop this massacre and this genocide against Palestinians. We encourage those countries who did not recognize Palestine as a full state member of the United Nations. We ask the Security Council and the General Assembly to take serious action and implement actions on the ground in Palestine to stop the Palestinian suffering in Palestine. If they were able to do so in Ukraine, if they were able to take actions against Russia, why can't they do the same in Palestine and take action for once against Israel to accept the international community's wishes to put an end to almost 8 decades of Israeli occupation? Palestinians deserve to have and live free and live independent, similar to any other nation around the globe. Of course, Malaysia is a great support, and Malaysia can play a role with its diplomatic relation with the international community to convince those who needs to be convinced to support Palestine.
With that, Your Excellency, it's always a pleasure having you here at Bernama. Bernama is always open to you. But having said that, it is very important that we also talk about ASEAN as a bloc. We've been hearing a lot about ASEAN talk about how we are having a bit of problems here and there, but outside looking in, as a Palestinian looking into ASEAN and the promise and what it can do together as a bloc, what would be your advice to ASEAN leaders at this point?
ASEAN leaders,
especially with negotiating the tariffs, with negotiating with the China-American push backward and forward. What would be your message?
The ASEAN platform is getting stronger and stronger. The ASEAN group can play a strong role, not just to show their support to Palestine, since they are looking to economy. Their interest in the Middle East is very important. When ASEAN decided to have a summit with the GCC countries, with China, I think ASEAN can play a role to put an end to a comprehensive settlement in the Middle East, and that will encourage ASEAN countries to invest more and more in the Middle East, in Palestine, and they can use the capabilities of Palestinians. We contributed so much, although we are under occupation, but as a Palestinian people, we are considered among the highest educated in the Middle East and in the Arab world. We can contribute so much. Our cooperation with ASEAN countries. I am resident in Malaysia. I'm resident ambassador to Thailand. I'm resident ambassador to Brunei, and I used to cover Philippines. So we have excellent, bilateral relationship with almost all ASEAN members, ASEAN countries. We can give as much as we can take. As well, we encourage through the CPAD to show their support to UNRWA. UNRWA was created last century for two main basic reasons: health and education for Palestinians. And Palestinians deserve to continue to have UNRWA until we get rid out of the Israeli occupation. UNRWA, which has been under siege by the Americans and by the Israelis. UNRWA has been under a lot of pressure. When we met with Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, in his office, together with UNRWA, he did show his interest in giving as much as he can of support to UNRWA. On the CPAD conference as well, UNRWA was there, and I do ask all ASEAN countries to show their support to UNRWA, because UNRWA give their services to Palestinians in Palestine, in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Jerusalem, and in the diaspora as well. The biggest refugee camps of us in Syria and Lebanon, in Jordan as well. So the 56 refugee camps in Palestine deserve to have UNRWA continue its services provided to them.
Talking about the embassy here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, at this point, what message does the embassy want to send out to Malaysians and to those dealing with the embassy in Malaysia about anything the embassy needs or information people need with regards to what's happening in
my
Gaza?
Message to Malaysians: I am almost at the end of my tenure here in Malaysia. I spent 7 years as ambassador of Palestine here in Malaysia. The embassy represents all Palestinians. The embassy is the legitimate representation of Palestine in Malaysia. Our doors are open, our hearts are open to all Malaysians. Don't get yourself lost between any disputes between Palestinians. We have to be united as Palestinians. Our top priority is the Israeli occupation. We have to continue fight the Israeli occupation until we get our independence. Malaysians are united to Palestine, and Palestinians must be united until they got their freedom and they got their independence.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. It was a pleasure and an honor having you in the studios of Bernama, and the doors of Bernama is always open to the people of Palestine and the Embassy of Palestine in Malaysia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
sir.
very much.
Thank you.
And also thank you very much for staying with us right here on Bernama TV. That's it from me. I'll see you again on the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch, where diplomacy meets direction and discussion. I'm GERARD RATNAM for Bernama TV. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch.